figuring out what you do, start there. Because when you feel safe, when you are eating those foods that make you feel safe, your body is going to start to feel more safe to eat other foods. So that's where, like, starting with your nervous system, starting with what keeps you feeling safe so that you can expand your distress and then start to go into maybe foods you haven't tried before. I find very fascinating that eating within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up helps your metabolism in general. So, like, it makes your body have better metabolism. So that's why we say eat your breakfast. It's so important. It's hard because a lot of people then will say, but then I get a lot of hunger cues throughout the day, and it's really hard to control my hunger cues. And so that's where eating your protein and your fat is so important.
Welcome to Power Up Recovery with Nutrition. It is time to make nutrition part of the conversation. I'm your host, Christina Veselak, and I'm so glad you're here. Did you know that it's our brain's job to allow us to cope with stress gracefully? But to do that, it needs to be fed optimally. Have you ever wondered why so many committed people relapse or maybe even die? Why so many people on psychotropic medication still feel lousy and still have cravings? What if the missing piece is food, the right food? What if the right nutrients like amino acids or even eating protein every 4 hours could actually balance your brain chemistry and your mood without medication and support lasting recovery? In this podcast, we explore the powerful connection between feeding your brain well, mental health, relapse, and recovery from addiction. We will share insights from experts, inspiring recovery stories, and practical strategies you can use today. Whether you're in recovery, a healthcare professional, or someone passionate about emotional well being, this show is for you. Let's dive in and discover how fueling your body and brain with the right food, the right amino acids, and other key nutrients can fuel your transformation today. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Power Up Recovery with Nutrition, where we talk with people in recovery themselves, sharing their own recovery journeys using nutrition and feeding their brains optimally, researchers in the field, doctors, and other practitioners. And so today I am delighted to have a conversation with, and I was on her podcast a little while ago, Annika Angelo, MS, who is one of the leading research experts or leading experts on the research between ADHD and nutrition. This is very close to my heart because ADHD derailed the first half of my life. Her goal is to empower those with ADHD to become more connected with their bodies and understand how food affects the brain. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. Yes, I remember hearing your story with ADHD, and I'm so glad you found something that worked for you over all
I
of
am
that
too.
process.
I am too. It really, while one can live, and I've known many people do it, a good and fulfilling life with ADHD, I personally would not have been able to accomplish everything I have in the last 20 years if I still had the brain that I used to have, which went in circles.
That's probably one of the hardest parts about ADHD for me, at least, just having that
Mhm.
constant running in the brain, and it's not anything that can shut off, it feels like.
That's the problem, is that one can slow it down, certainly. And, I have a little bit left over. And I find, for instance, that theanine is my best friend.
Oh, I
I
love
love the
that.
amino acid theanine because it allows my brain to settle down, me to calm down. My brain stops spinning, can go in a straight line. I can breathe and think.
Yes, we can totally start with that actually. That just reminds me of
Okay.
TikTok, that there was a trend on TikTok for a while about people saying that matcha has been helping their ADHD. And so many people were asking me, is this even true? Can it be possible? And it could because that combination of caffeine plus L-theanine can both stimulate the brain but relax it at the same time so you
Mhm.
can feel more in control.
And there's research about that, isn't there? About
Yeah.
combining theanine and caffeine.
Yes. And that's why I love really combining any amino acid like theanine or something similar like theobromine with cocoa. Combining the caffeine with those, it seems to help your brain so much better than just caffeine. Or well,
Yeah.
sometimes like just the L-theanine is really helpful, but it seems like that combination is really helpful for a lot of people.
Well, it is. And that's where then I'll bring in the amino acid tyrosine and either combine it with theanine or take it maybe half an hour to an hour before adding the theanine so that we get a little bit of the energy boost from the tyrosine and then bring in theanine.
Mm,
And you get that same energized focus with the I can breathe.
I love that. I haven't personally tried tyrosine, so I don't supplement with anything. No, that's a lie. I do supplement now with, we talked about it, Hardy Nutritionals, their
Right.
daily essential nutrients. That has been so helpful for me because it's an intense, high dose multi-nutrient that's all encompassing. And it has relaxed my brain so much. But after talking to you, I've been thinking about maybe I really should try more other ones like tyrosine or L-theanine. I haven't gone around to it yet, but
The research is there. And of course, the research is also there with the high dose fish oil or omega-3 fatty acids in ADHD.
and that's the really curious thing with the research on omega-3s and ADHD, the supplementation, at least in the past, it seemed to be at least moderately helpful. But in the most recent two meta-analyses, there was no impact. And my suspect here is that it does help people with ADHD, but the quality of our supplements has gone downhill, especially with fish oil because you can oxidize it so
That's right.
easily. And yeah, that's my take on fish oil.
You have to find a quality one, and there's two I really like, but you also have to dose it right. And so many researchers use the bottom possible dose and then wonder why
Yes,
it doesn't work,
there's also that issue.
rather than moving up to finding an actual effective dose. And I had a researcher on here a little bit ago, Dr. John Umhau, who is doing research on the omega-3 fatty acids for NIH. And he's basically decided that pretty much everybody needs 5 grams of a really good, high quality concentrated fish oil per day to function optimally. And people with issues, addiction issues, ADHD issues, brain injury issues, need double that.
Mm,
And you don't hear those doses talked about very much.
no, because it can seem really scary because it hasn't been really, really studied because people are afraid to study really high doses. And
Right, except that it has been studied.
oh,
You know,
really? I don't know if I've
yeah,
seen, I guess I only focus on the research with ADHD, so I don't branch into many
yeah.
other.
Oh, yeah. So, Dr. Michael Lewis, who I also interviewed on this podcast about a year ago, was published a book in 2017 called When Brains Collide. And at that point, he was recommending 15 grams, so 5 grams 3 times a day with food per day for traumatic brain injury.
Mm,
And I actually found that dose to miraculously work with some of my clients with traumatic brain injury.
wow.
And then he did research in 2011 with soldiers who had died by suicide. And while he wasn't recommending doses in his report on the study he did, what they found is that the soldiers who died of suicide had the lowest amount of omega-3 fatty acids in their brain
Mm.
compared to the soldiers who died from other causes.
I think I've actually heard that research before. That's so wonderful you got to talk with them about it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow. I love that. That's what I'm hoping to do on my podcast more, just talking to those researchers, doing the groundwork.
Well,
But that
I
makes so
think it
much
matters.
sense.
Well, you see, it actually does make sense because what the both EPA and DHA do, they do different things in the brain and body, but combined, they reduce inflammation, they improve cell membrane function, which of course we need for neurotransmitter transmission, and they improve mitochondrial energy production.
Yes. And it's so important. And what not a lot of people know with ADHD is the research we have with omega-3s and ADHD and how we metabolize it is that people with ADHD seem to metabolize it differently in not a great way, as in we cycle through it faster almost. With the genetic studies that we have, we've seen that, but also with observational studies of doing the exhaled methane levels. And it really just goes to show how much more a person with ADHD will need omega-3s simply because we're using it more or our bodies aren't using it effectively.
Right. So that points to needing a higher dose and a lower dose not being effective because it's just being, run through so much more quickly.
Yes. And if anyone is trying to figure out a good omega-3, again, I haven't found a great one myself, but the way you know it's oxidized is if you get those fish burps. So if you get fish burps, you know it's not a good one for you.
No.
But some research has found if you have a combination of extra virgin olive oil with
Mm.
the omega-3 supplement, that one, they tend to not oxidize because of the antioxidants
Right. The
from the
polyphenols protect it. Right. So that's the Zinzino company. And we are now distributing Zinzino from our website. But the other company that people just don't burp on is Nordic Naturals. And their Pro 2000, which I've been using for and recommending for a very long time now, because there are basically no other fatty acids in it. It's just the DHA and EPA. So it's very concentrated. And that was the brand that Dr. Michael Lewis was using initially to do his research on.
amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Those are some great recommendations then.
And in fact, he partnered with Nordic Naturals to create a nonprofit research institute where they were actually doing the research.
I love that. Oh,
Isn't that cool? Yeah.
it hits all of my buttons.
Yeah. So you were talking about genes, ADHD and what's happening genetically that we need more of the omega-3s. Can you speak to that? What some of those genetic SNPs are?
That's a hard one because I don't have them memorized. I've written about them. I cannot say them off the top of
Okay.
my head.
Okay.
Great question,
We can
though.
look.
I think what's really interesting is that there are a lot of metabolic differences with ADHD and
Okay.
the general population, just with how we metabolize different
Huh?
nutrients. The most recent study just came out in 2025 and found that we metabolize B12 differently, in addition to the previous research we've seen with metabolizing B6 differently, a few amino acids differently. And it's, it just blows my mind how connected ADHD is with the body, and no one talks about that.
So what do you mean by metabolizing differently? Can
What
you
I
be really
mean by
specific?
that is the when researchers do these genetic or these metabolic profiles, they will notice that either the gut bacteria that metabolize and use these nutrients or create these nutrients are in different levels or they are in different ratios. And it's mainly gut bacteria that they
Gut
look at.
bacteria?
And that's because if anyone doesn't know, our gut really is so important for how we use nutrients. Yeah, and that's where really feeding our gut. is important with ADHD, even though it's really hard because it means eating a lot of plants.
Yeah,
And so many of us struggle with just eating healthily in general.
I do, and I know better. So, what do you recommend as an ADHD diet, for instance?
The first thing I always say is focus on what you can do and what you are doing
Hmm?
because we have been told so much of our lives that we're failing in some way. And when we put that external pressure on ourselves to be perfect, to have that right diet, then it's just going to
Right.
fall apart because,
Yeah. And then you give up. I
yeah,
can't do it right, so I'm not going to do it at all.
exactly. And so that's the first step I just say. Start with what can I actually add? If I'm eating a bag of chips, can I also eat a banana at the same time?
Mhm,
It doesn't have to be that difficult. It's just doing what you're doing, but adding something else that's maybe a little bit healthier. I find fruit is something that is easy for a lot of people to start with. Vegetables are a little harder for people to start with because you have to cook a lot of them, but fruit you can just
mhm.
pull right out of the bag.
Well, you can pull carrots right out of the bag and celery.
You sure could. Personally, I do not like celery at all. Love that for people
Okay.
who do. So, like, that's the other aspect, the taste. A lot of people with ADHD have issues with taste and texture. And so
Yeah. And
that's
here
the
we're
other
moving a
thing.
little bit more towards the neurodivergency.
So,
Mhm,
figuring out what you do, start there. Because when you feel safe, when you are eating those foods that make you feel safe, your body is going to start to feel more safe to eat other foods. So that's where, like, starting with your nervous system, starting with what keeps you feeling safe so that you can expand your distress and then start to go into maybe foods you haven't tried before.
Now, what have you found with protein and stabilizing blood sugar?
Yes. So that's what I say people should focus on second. So that's what I call the second level of
Uh-huh.
ADHD eating. And that's where you focus on having protein with every meal. So you can stabilize that blood sugar. So a lot of us crave those carbohydrates. And of course, there's some just cultural conditioning that comes from that. But it's also, think about it, your brain is using a lot of energy. And what does your brain get energy from the quickest? Your carbohydrates. And we have research indicating that people with ADHD, especially women with ADHD for some reason, have differences in how they use glucose in their brains. It seems to be less effective. And so, of course, you are going to have those cravings for more carbohydrates, but that's
Mhm.
just a band-aid because for a lot of us, the reason why we're craving those carbohydrates,
Because we're not eating and our blood sugar's low and we're craving sugar to raise our blood sugar and our neurotransmitters are depleted because we're not eating enough protein. And so we crave the sugar because it fires them and acts like a nice little drug,
yes,
Mommerly.
yes, exactly. And that's the hard cycle to get out of. And so that's where adding the protein to everything that you're eating. And not everything, because that can become a rule on our brain too. And then when we have that rule, it can start to snowball us into the moment I don't do it, I'm a failure and I
Right.
should just quit. So keeping that black and white thinking in the back of our heads, realizing that we're
Mhm.
really susceptible to that black and white thinking and accepting that it's okay if we don't do it all the time. But also realizing when we do eat protein with every meal, we start to feel a lot better. And that can reinforce how we feel.
To really notice that and for parents to help children notice that and connect the dots.
And that's really hard with kids, especially picky kids,
Yeah.
because a lot of the times kids who just have a few foods that they like, they're usually full carbohydrate. And it's hard. And that's a conversation that you would have with a dietitian, especially one who specializes in helping kids eat. if that's like where a person is right now for you yourself, that is where recommend starting with your nervous system. Because if you don't feel safe, if you've never felt that your body's felt safe, of course, eating is not going to feel safe because eating is one of the few things that forces you to be present because it is full embodiment. You have to experience it. And if you don't feel safe, eating's not going to feel
Yeah,
safe either.
right. And then you're going to eat whatever's there, whatever tastes good, and you may eat in a hurry or standing up
Hmm.
rather than, as you say, a full body experience where you're enjoying it, you're taking in the nutrients, you're thinking it through what's good for me, what makes me feel good, what do I enjoy,
Yes.
all those things.
And in giving yourself that knowledge that it is a big experience. And it's okay to feel like you need to distract yourself. That's just a signal that maybe you're a little dysregulated. You
Right.
don't have to judge
Yeah.
it. It's just, oh, maybe there's something I can do in my environment to make me feel more comfortable. Does sitting at the table make me feel uncomfortable? What if I just ate on the couch? Would that be okay?
See, this is where I will also bring in the amino acid theanine to just help me and others just kind of calm down
Mm,
and stop spinning. So it's easier to think through preparing a meal. It's easier to calm down enough to sit down and enjoy it and relax and breathe.
yes.
And so theanine is one of my most favorite amino acids for ADHD. And that's one of the reasons why. But, that brings me to the awareness that most of us have experienced that with an ADHD brain, it can be sometimes hard to shop. It can be hard to stop and make time to cook. It can be hard to clean our kitchens sufficiently so that there is a clean counter space on which to cook and a clean stove top to which to cook, right?
Yes.
And how many cupboard doors just happen to be wide open? Those
Oh,
lovely things that the ADHD brain
oh yeah.
does automatically or doesn't do automatically, I should say.
Yes, one of the biggest realizations of my adult life was when I was talking to my husband and I was telling him how much effort eating is because it
Mhm.
feels like it's at least 5 steps because you have to think about what you want to eat, you have to prepare it, you have to cook it, you have to eat it, and then you also have to clean it up. There's so many parts into eating.
Everything.
And for
See, and the
him,
non
it
AD
was
and the
just
non ADHD brain doesn't understand the actual steps that we have to go through to make things like this happen. But the ADD brain can get derailed on any one of those steps.
and that's what my husband said. He told me that he only sees it as one step. It's just eating is the whole step.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that completely blew my mind. And that's where I decided I need to tell people how can we actually make this easier for us? Because
Mhm.
if this is the barrier to us eating or eating well, then what can we do about it? Because there's always something we can do. Just because our life is a little harder doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means our brains are working a little bit extra, but we can always
I
figure it out.
love Trader Joe's frozen entrees.
They're so good. One of my favorites is their gnocchi. And what we do is we'll put it on the stove top, right? But then we also add, there's some frozen chicken that we get from Aldi that's
Mhm.
pre-cooked. And so we just dump that in there. And we also get some vegetables. I'll cut up some
Yeah.
asparagus, usually. I love asparagus in it. Or just a bag of frozen peas or a bag of frozen edamame. That way you get your fiber, you get your protein, and it's super easy. It's just dump and go, but you're getting
My
all your
freezer
nutrients.
my freezer is my best friend. I've tried some of those pre-made food meal services. And I think they may be good for some people. They just didn't work for me because they were still too fiddly. A lot of them were gourmet, and it's like you had to do
Mm,
this, that, this, and this. And like, OMG. No, but I use Butcher Box, and Butcher Box has really healthy gluten-free meatballs. That's what I had for lunch today. I had
Fantastic.
three of those meatballs and a handful of salad greens. And we had made a little, fruit thing. So I had a little fruit thing with it. It was so easy.
Ah, yes, that's
I've
what we
got this
need.
bag of frozen shrimp in my freezer, of course, and I will pull out a serving of frozen shrimp and a serving of frozen peas and put whatever flavoring on top of it I want. And it's protein and it's fiber and it's veggies and it's easy and it's fast.
Yes. And that's what I tell people in general. I used to work one-on-one with people. I don't do that anymore. I have a monthly membership instead where I can more easily reach out with people. We can talk. I give an ebook every single month. One month was pretty much exactly what you're talking about with frozen meals, but easy dump and go frozen meals that
Yeah,
you can just
yeah.
create from home. And the thing that I found most helpful is when you're having an issue starting, ask yourself three things. What feels fun? What feels fast? Or what feels
Mhm.
satisfying? And if you can find something that fits one of those, your brain is going to be like, okay, yeah, we can do this. Because it speaks to the ADHD brain. Because if it's not fun, then whatever. But if it's fast, we could do it. We're like, oh yeah, I can do it,
Mhm.
even though it's not fun. But if it's not fun, or if it is fun, it doesn't matter how long it takes. We'll just hyper focus on it. Or if we know it's going to make us feel satisfied, we're like, yeah,
Right.
I could do that.
Great idea. Yeah, great principles to follow.
Yeah, it saved me a lot. I do that with cleaning as well. If I have a issue getting started with cleaning, I'll just ask myself, what feels fun, what feels fast, or what feels satisfying, and just start with that.
See, for me, what is the easiest thing I can get done that will visually make a difference?
Mm,
So I'll stand in my kitchen, and this is before I had got my ADHD under control, and of course it would be an absolute chaotic mess. And I would look around and I would actually do this out loud. I would actually pray out loud. God, what should I do first? Ask this out loud. And I look around and it's like, oh, I can throw all the trash away. So I go around my
yeah.
kitchen and I throw all the trash away because that's easy, right? I can see what the
Yeah.
trash is and I can dump it in the trash can. And then I stop and thank myself out loud because somehow that helps. Thank you for throwing all the trash away. Good job. Doesn't that look nicer? Right? We need reward. We
Oh,
need reward.
yes. Please, everybody, reward yourself. Tell yourself that you're doing a good job.
Yes. Yes. Congratulate yourself because it may seem silly, but for the ADHD brain, this stuff is hard. This stuff is hard. And it is one little step at a time. So then I'll look around the kitchen and say out loud, what's the next thing I can do? And it's close all the cupboard doors. Oh, I can close all the cupboard doors if that's my task, right? And if maybe so, I go around and I close all the cupboard doors. And if there's more than three, I try not to get too distracted. And then I thank myself for closing all the cupboard doors. And usually by then I'm done and need a break. But if not, it's like, okay, what's the final thing I can do? And it works.
I also always start with trash. I found that it feels the easiest and it's
Mm,
the most visually appealing after.
right, right.
Now, taking the trash out, that's a second step. That's harder for me, but I
That's
can
my
put it into the
husband's
bin.
job. That's my husband's job.
That's my husband's job too. Yes.
Partners. But I think that matters. So it's playing to our strengths. So my husband
Yeah.
has very serious ADHD, but there's some things he's really good at. He is mostly good at the trash, except he will sometimes forget my office. But if I just put my office on trash day, put my office bin, out in the hallway, then he trips over it and so he can't forget it. So he's really good at that. He's really good at filling the dishwasher. He hates emptying the dishwasher. because that means organizing and putting things away, right? And so therefore, I really hate him emptying the dishwasher too, because everything ends up in the wrong place. There's the knife drawer, not there. So I empty the dishwasher. He fills it, I empty it. So we play to our strengths.
I love that. And something in there that I think a lot of people with ADHD don't do enough of is communication. And that's what you're doing. And directive communication is something I found really beneficial. Telling or having my husband tell me what to do is so much better for me because then
Yeah,
my brain's like, oh, I can do that. Yep, sounds good.
it's better for my husband too. Now, it didn't used to be because he's also a bit on the, spectrum. And me interrupting him or telling him what to do was too much information for his brain to process.
Mm.
And so he would escalate and then 3 minutes later would look at me and say, now, what was it you wanted me to do? But that didn't work out so well. So we found that neurofeedback settled his brain down enough that now I actually can tell him what to do. He can take it in. He does do it most of the time. Um, and it's great.
That's incredible. I've been following the research on neurofeedback for ADHD, and
Oh, you're
oh,
biased.
it's so interesting hearing a real case. Wow. Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
It didn't fix his ADHD by any means, but what it did do was help his brain cope with transition, flow more easily, be less compartmentalized.
Mm.
So he's able to receive instruction now without getting overwhelmed. He's able to be more verbally affectionate. He's able to ask a little more clearly for what he wants and needs. Still a bit of a struggle, but he's so much better at it than he was pre neurofeedback, right? It was really quite a game changer for us.
I'm so grateful that y'all had that
Yeah.
experience for him. Going
So
back
any
to the ADHD food, we talked about the first two levels. So if a person feels like they are good at those two things, then we can go into that third level. And the third level is where you'll start to see more improvements in your ADHD overall. And that is eating 30 grams of protein with every meal, around 30 grams, having 30 grams of fiber every day at least, ideally getting more than 30 grams, but that's really hard for a lot of people.
that's for the
30,
gut.
yes, at 30 different plants a week, that's going to really help your gut. And when people hear 30 different plants, that sounds really scary. But when you think about it, coffee is a plant, chocolate is a plant, any nut is a plant, any seed is a plant. If you get that 17 seeded bread, you're technically getting 17 different plants. So grains are plants. Your fruits and vegetables are plants. I have a more detailed breakdown if a person wanted to be more detailed about what types of plants, what color plants are more important, and the ratios. But that's just in my large ADHD nutrition manual. But overall, just if you can try to get 30 plants a week, that's going to do wonders for your gut. And then, so that's the 30, 30, 30 part. And then there's the 1, 2, 3 part. So the one part is one probiotic food a day. It can be Greek yogurt. That's really easy. Or you can drink some kombucha or have some sauerkraut. Sauerkraut, you want to have it the refrigerated kind. The canned kind doesn't have probiotics. But so yeah, so one probiotic food a day is two seafood meals a week if possible. If you are allergic to seafood, that sucks. Consider getting omega-3 supplement. But seafood, especially fatty fish, salmon if possible. And then three,
Sardines work.
oh gosh, yes, sardines. Those are great if you like them. I wish I liked them. Maybe I will someday. I'll work myself up to it. I worked myself up to salmon, so we got there. And then three is 3 meals a day. It,
Yeah.
it's really
I
hard for
love
a
that.
lot of people, but the when you actually start eating 3 meals a day consistently, you're going to notice a difference in your body and in your brain and how you operate in the world. And I know a lot of people are like, no, I don't want to eat breakfast. It makes me feel nauseous. I feel really bad. You could just drink a protein shake. That's
Right.
okay.
Right. Sip it slowly.
You can totally do that. And remembering that the food you eat in the morning sets your metabolism up for the day. There is a research study that I find very fascinating that eating within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up helps your metabolism in general. So, like, it makes your body have better metabolism. So, that's why we say eat your breakfast. It's so important. It's hard because a lot of people then will say, but then I get a lot of hunger cues throughout the day, and it's really hard to control my hunger cues. And so that's where eating your protein and your fat so important.
Keeps blood sugar stable rather than doing this. If you have a cup of coffee with a teaspoon of sugar in it and a bagel with jam, for breakfast, your blood sugar is going to be doing this all day. And your hunger cues are going to be doing this all day.
Protein breakfast is hard. It's hard to find that. I did write a cookbook or an ADHD cookbook with one of my
Really?
friends. Yes, it's actually an ADHD Ayurvedic cookbook. So it brings in the traditional science, but also the more Eastern medicine together. She's an Ayurvedic chef. So it was great. We have that out. It's on my website if anyone wants to get it. It's called,
I want it.
I really love it so much. All of the foods. It's called the Eat to Focus Cookbook. We don't sell it on Amazon. We want to be very conscious, personally, just about intentions because it's an Ayurvedic focused book, and Ayurveda is very focused on intention. And so, with every one we pack, because we pack it personally, we send a
Oh,
handwritten note and just send it with the intention of you feeling supported by us. So,
that's lovely. I love
yeah,
that.
yes, me too. It's one of my, I don't know, favorite things about life. Just letting people feel like they can have more control over what they're
Mhm.
eating and knowing that all the recipes were created scientifically to help your ADHD. So you don't have to think about all of these little things that we've been talking about today, but it's also supportive of your whole self Ayurvedically.
Nice.
We love that. I just went off track. I'm trying to remember what we were talking about.
Oh, I don't think this is off track at all. This is exactly what I wanted us to be talking about.
Oh, fantastic. Yes.
So that's good. But no, you had just finished talking about the one, two, three.
Right. Oh, I was going to bring up another question people ask me when I say eat 3 meals a day. They're like, what about intermittent fasting? Because they've noticed that intermittent fasting has helped them. And there is no research yet on if intermittent fasting helps ADHD. However, we do know that it can help mitochondria if used correctly through
Hmm.
some autophagy, which is the helping your cells essentially become better, and reducing oxidative stress. But the thing a lot of people get wrong with intermittent fasting is they're fasting in the morning, when in reality, you can start fasting, say, after dinner. If you finish dinner at 6, you still get
Hmm.
that same amount of time, but it's in a way that's more conducive to helping your whole metabolic system.
Well, and this is the fourth step in our five-star pro-recovery diet, which is personalization.
Yes, and I love that because that is also my fourth in the 4 levels. That's the figuring out what works for you, potentially taking out things. But we don't want to do that. And
Until you have the good foundation. Exactly. And a lot of people try to do intermittent fasting before their adrenals have settled down. And they're still really reactive. And it's what I tell people that intermittent fasting is probably not good for you if by the end of your fasting window you are irritable and reactive and crabby and anxious and want to eat every
yes,
sight.
Yes. That's how you
Okay,
know it is not good for you right now.
that's right. That's when you want to be eating that protein every 4 hours within an hour of getting up, or use the amino acid L-glutamine to feed your brain until you can get that food in. Glutamine's wonderful for getting you over a hump,
Mm.
turns off that adrenaline surge. And other people find that they can with no problem. It works beautifully. And also intermittent fasting, they're saying, look, well, 12 hours at minimum. Okay, some people want to do 16 hours for specific metabolic reasons, but at least 12 hours. Well, that's 8 to 8. That's not actually difficult to do.
No, it's not at all. And that's why I was saying, like, you can just stop after dinner and then you can eat breakfast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Or
hard for
some
a lot of people though
Oh,
to
or
just
or some
stop, but
people like me, I need to eat before bed relatively, or I just simply can't sleep. If it's been
mm,
more than 3 hours without eating something, I just can't sleep. My adrenaline's running, and I'm tossing and turning and tossing and turning and saying, "You're hungry. I don't feel hungry. Your brain's hungry. I don't want my brain to be hungry. I'm just going to roll over one more time and go to sleep." And then the 11th time I roll over, it's, well, maybe you should get up and get something to eat.
yeah.
So I do, and then come back to bed and I'm asleep within 5 minutes. So this is the personalization.
Yeah.
I can go longer in the morning. I feel stable enough in the morning that I can go longer. And then, my brain says, okay, now it's time to eat. It's like, okay, now it's time to eat. So this is the personalization, listening to your body, listening to your brain, and not having to do it like everybody else, but taking the principles and, okay, how can I now apply these principles to me, to my lifestyle, to my preferences, to my genetics, to my brain, to my taste buds?
And I think that's where a lot of people with ADHD do get it wrong because we hear these things and our brains are so black and white. I
Right.
remember my husband was telling me that he doesn't really like asparagus. And in my brain, I thought that meant he did not want to ever have asparagus. So I would never buy it. And then he told me, like, we haven't had asparagus in a while. It's like, I thought you hated it. No.
And
And that's the issue we get into when we hear all the things that I've been talking about. We'll start to put into our brains, if I don't do intermittent fasting the way that I talked about it, then it's not worth it. Or if I do it that way and it's not helping me, then it's wrong. In reality, we need to do it to ourselves,
not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
right? And it's at the end of the day, it's just research. Every single person is individual. You are not a conglomerate of studies. You are one person.
Well, decades ago when I first started on my own health journey, my doctor had just discovered the omega-3 fatty acids in fish oil and had just discovered the amino acid tyrosine. Well, tyrosine is great for the ADHD brain. And the rules say that you're supposed to take it on an empty stomach. So she said, take 1,000 milligrams of tyrosine 3 times a day upon arising, mid morning, and mid afternoon on an empty stomach. And a month later, I called her up and I said, it's not working. She said, are you taking it every day, 3 times a day, the way I told you to? I said, no, I can't remember. Now, this was before my ADHD had gotten diagnosed,
Mm,
but ADHD brains don't remember things like that well.
not very
So
well at
then
all.
could I take it with food? Said, I think I'll remember. And she said, well, I think so. It's in food. This was a long time ago. And so I did my 1,000 milligrams with breakfast and with lunch. And I did what I did was 1,500 so that I could get the two in because I could
Mm,
not remember the mid afternoon. But so I did breakfast and I did lunch and called her up after a month and I said, it's working. I have more energy. I have more focus. I feel brighter. I feel more alive. Bingo.
working with your brain.
Working with my brain and pairing it. For me, pairing it, putting it by my placemat and pairing it with meal prep worked. For other
Yes.
people, you need your phone to call you for it to work.
That's actually something that I've struggled with, the phone. I
Mhm.
found that using notifications with my phone just doesn't work. And so it
Mhm.
has to be paired with something I'm physically doing. If I'm trying to build any habit, it has to be something that I'm actually doing. And so, say with exactly medication, I take the supplements 3 times a day because there's 12 of them, because it's, again, it's a very intense multi-nutrient, but it really works for me. And I eat it with food. And that's how I know I've taken my supplements because I ate my breakfast, I ate my lunch, ate my dinner. And then it becomes a habit because you have paired it with
Right.
something that you're physically
That's right.
doing.
That works for me too. Well, this has been a delightful conversation.
Oh, it truly has. I love talking about ADHD and food and our brains. And
Anything else you want to share with us?
truly, I think going back to what I said at the start, you have to start with your nervous system because you cannot absorb nutrients if your nervous system, I mean, you can, but you don't absorb them as well if your body is not feeling safe. And if you're not feeling safe, it's going to be harder to eat. You're going to have a harder time even cooking your food, let alone eating it, or let alone eating foods that are going to make you feel better. Because it's easier to overconsume foods that make us feel comforted in the moment, but over time make us feel worse. And so when we don't focus on trusting our body and learning how to trust our body, and understanding when we feel dysregulated, then it's going to be harder for any nutritional intervention to work. And also giving yourself time and grace. No, you are going to not be perfect.
Time and grace.
You deserve all of the grace, all of it.
That's lovely. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And how can people reach you?
So, the best way to get in contact with me is through email. Used to be good at DMs. However, having a lot of followers, it gets very overwhelming. So my email is annika@nutrimindlab.com. However, I also have a newsletter where I send out weekly research on ADHD, simple, easy food ideas. So if you want to get on that, that's all on my website at nutrimindlab.com. And then if you need more personalized support, that's where my monthly membership comes in, or you could get my ADHD nutrition manual or the Eat to Focus cookbook. All of that also is on my website at nutrimindlab.com.
Wonderful. And of course, that information will be in the show notes. So thank you so much. And thank you all for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please press the subscribe button and the like button and share it with everybody in your life who you think would benefit from this lovely, fun conversation. See you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Recovery with Nutrition. I'm Christina Veselak, your host, and I hope today's episode has inspired and equipped you with new insights and tools to support your recovery journey or practice. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who could benefit from the knowledge shared here. Stay connected with us for more episodes filled with practical advice, expert wisdom, and inspiring recovery stories. Remember, nutrition is a powerful tool in mental health and relapse prevention. Power up your recovery today. I'm Christina Veselak, and I'll see you next time.